How's it going, guys? Cody, guys, back again, dropping out another video. Right, guys, the story I'm about to read you is in the Metro. As you can tell from the title of the video, it's about prison photo booths. The lady says that prison photo booths have kept my husband and son's bond strong. I support this wholeheartedly right now. This is something that they're saying is new. It's not actually new. It's actually been around for a few years. What I mean by that and how I know that is because when I was in Forest Bank, I was locked up with a kid who was in for murder. We was padded up, right? Now, he was up on AVs. If you don't know what AVs is accumulated visits, right? Where he was, it was inaccessible for his family. So he went without visits for a very, very long time. And then they all gathered up his visits and stuff. And then he was shipped back up to Salford, where he's from. And he could have a visit every day. That's what AVs is, accumulated visits. And he gave me, and I've actually got them in my memory box upstairs, right? He gave me a picture of him and his mum that was taken on a visit at Lowdham Grange prison. At Lowdham Grange, you got like this sort of luminous armband on, rather than wearing a vest that you wear in other prisons. You know, like the pullover vest thing, right? They have like an armband sort of thing to identify the prisoner, and they have pictures on the visits there. Now, these photo booths might be new, but the concept of photography on visits, right? You can have a visit with your missus, like with your arm round her, like might be kissing her on the cheek, she might be kissing you on the cheek, and then I think you pay a small price, £1 or £2, and they print them out, and then you can keep them. They're not proper photographs from what he gave me. It was like a piece of paper, you know, like if you'd like printed it off a computer or something. But like I say, you cannot put a price on family ties whilst in prison. They can be the difference between life and death. That's genuine. That sounds over the top and a bit, no, I don't really agree with that, but it's true. It's definitely true. You take your support network away from your loved one in prison, their head will fall off a lot. If you are visiting someone in prison and you are there for them and you're at the end of the phone and you're putting up with their shit and their paranoia and their irrational thinking, right, and the depressive like moods that you get in on that roller coaster that is prison, that you're strapped into as the prisoner's girlfriend or the prisoner's family, right, you're saving lives, man. You are that light at the end of the tunnel. For that prisoner, you are the light at the end of the tunnel. You are giving that person a reason to live. You are giving that person a focus. You are giving that person hope and something to look forward to upon release. Because there's far too many people in prison leaving with addictions, leaving in body bags, going to prison with accommodation because they've been in prison for long or short sentences. They've lost their accommodation. They're homeless. They start taking drugs. They leave prison, they're kicked out with £46. They're not put in a bail hostel. They end up on the streets. Not everyone's got a support network, guys. So if you've got it, embrace it, grab it with both hands, right? And anyway, let me stop rambling about. But I've got nothing but love and respect for anyone that's supporting anyone in prison. Even if you don't like me, still support it. Still got nothing but love and respect for you. Right, this is in the Metro. Link in the description below, like I always do. Headline reads: prison photo booths have kept my husband and son's bond strong. My husband, Tom Hayes, was sent to H&P Lowdham Grange. It's not H&P, I believe it to be a private prison. An all-male prison in Nottinghamshire in 2015. At that time, our son Joshua was just 3 years old. Managing the family dynamic when a loved one is in prison is incredibly difficult and stressful. We have struggled at times to keep it together, but we've always fought to ensure that Tom's bond with Joshua survives the most challenging of times. The prison installed a photo booth last year to give children visiting their fathers in prison a more positive experience. It's very popular among the families, including my own, and I'm happy it has been receiving a positive reaction in the press this week. Tom was Joshua's primary caregiver right up until his trial, and Joshua was profoundly impacted by the imprisonment of his dad. Prison visits are emotionally and physically exhausting. A family may travel hundreds of miles to get to the prison, wait hours in the cold and rain, registering for the visit, clearing security, queue up for ages, then get in the visit hall, and then finally the visit begins. The visits hall is where prisoners and their families connect. It is a place full of joy and sadness and is in almost an equal measure. At the beginning of the visit, you hear small children shrieking with delight as their dads appear through the metal reinforced doors, racing from across the hall to get them to grab them for a cuddle. Even before the relevant dad has managed to get his prison bib on and check in at the security desk. You see the older children trying to play it cool, but then abandoning any notion of self-restraint once the smaller ones have had their initial cuddles. You see that people have been judged to have done something wrong in a very different way. As a father, as a son, as a brother. At the end of a visit, you hear the same children, the big ones and the small ones, sobbing as they cling to their dads, often begging to go into prison and stay there just to have a bit of time with them. My young son does all this on every visit. We are hoping for another appeal this year, and we are very much looking forward to welcoming Tom home. Throughout our time as a prison family, there have been a number of things that have directly contributed to our ability to keep our family unit together and to keep the bond between Tom and Joshua strong. At HMP Lowdham Grange, Tom has had a phone in his cell and was able to call to say goodnight to Joshua every night. It's been so important for Joshua to hear his dad's voice on a regular basis at a time when Joshua is actually able to speak to him. Often the phones available on prison landings cannot be used past a certain time, and some children will be in school or in childcare at those times. This is also a great scheme called Storybook Dads, where the prisoner reads a story such as the Gruffalo on camera, and the child receives the recording to play at home at bedtime. On many occasions when Joshua has cried for his dad at bedtime, I've been able to play the DVDs to comfort him. Also, taken on family days and in the photo booth at Lowdham Grange has been a great deal of comfort to Joshua over the years. Joshua has on his bedroom wall an assortment of photos of Tom, Joshua and I, taken either by prison officers in the visits hall or in the photo booth, and he regularly gazes at them when he's thinking about his dad. The families of prisoners serve a sentence alongside the prisoner. Often the initial reaction is akin to a bereavement. That's very true. There's a prisoner's girlfriend I speak to, and she actually says the same thing there. Callie, she knows who she is. But unlike a bereavement, society and the press often turn against the family of the convicted defendant, which is true. Employment may be at risk, children may be shunned or bullied at school. There is a little support available, although this does seem to be changing. Is it expensive to travel to visit a loved one in prison? And so despite the assisted prison visit system, some children do not see their dads for many weeks or months at a time. That's because of financial restraints. Often convicted defendants are sent to prison that are many miles away from their families. For most of his sentence, Tom was locked up in a high security prison over 150 miles from where I and Joshua live. 3-year-old Joshua did a 300-mile trip every other weekend in the first 2 years of Tom's sentence and spent all week in nursery school while I worked. He was exhausted. Even when placed in a local prison, prisoners can be moved with no warning, ending up anywhere in the country and out of contact with their families for days or even weeks. I personally would welcome any initiative to introduce across the prison estate, public and private, measures that facilitate building bonds between prisoners and their families within the confines of the required security measures in place to protect victims and society. How level-headed is this woman? For those guilty of criminal offences, family contact has been shown time and time again to be the thing that reduces reoffending rates. If we are serious about reducing crime, these initiatives should be embraced. I tell you what, Tom's wife is extremely switched on lady. Absolute, and there's a picture of him there, guys. I'll put it at the start of the video as well. Right, look at that. Right, there's poppy fields in the background. Right, that's obviously taken in the photo booth. This is an initiative that I support wholeheartedly. This, like I say, when I was in jail, I was single and I didn't have children. But you can still have say your nana's coming up to visit you, and a lot of these hardened cons, right, as big and as bad as we are or whatever, right, or we were, in my case, right, we idolise our nanas for some reason. Some people might idolise the granddads, the mums and dads. A lot of us idolise our nanas, right? My nana passed away when I was just 16. But if you've got an aging relative, as well as children, you've seen the importance of children and father ties and stuff. And also mothers as well, you've got female prisoners as well. But yeah, it's just a massive initiative. And if you've got an elder relative and they're like, you're doing a long sentence, right? You could, like, there's no guarantee if you're coming up for parole or you've got to go through the parole process. There's nothing to say you're going to get out, and your loved one, your cherished person, your idol, whether that be your mum, your dad, your granddad, your nano, you can have visits, pictures on visits at that prison, which then their memories them. Because and like I say, that's the reality. You don't want to be like, oh, you last had a picture with them 15 years ago because you've been in jail since then. Do you know what I mean? the importance of family ties, and I'll say it again, is the difference between life and death. This woman travelled, like I said, for the first 2 years, every week, they travelled 300-mile round trip, right, to a Cat A facility to go on a visit, right, once a week, right, convicted. You get once a week convicted. They might have had extended visits, actually, because of the distance travelled, but it differs from prison to prison. Extended visits, I've seen 2 hours and I've seen 3 hours. Great initiative, support it wholeheartedly. What do you guys think? Do you guys embrace it? Would you think it's a good initiative? I think it reinforces family ties. It's, imagine that, right? You've like your kids on a visit and stuff, and you've got regular pictures. Every week you can have a picture with your dad or your like daughter or your son or whatever the case may be, right? Their memories, you can put them on your wall, right? When you're in prison, right? We've seen the importance from the mother and the son. But the prisoner, right? Say the prisoner. So the prisoner takes them pictures, right, as well. He'll take some. He puts them on his cell wall. When he starts to spiral, into depression and suicidal thoughts, like a lot of people do, or depressive times, or bad moods, or down, disheartened, like feel like you're never going to get out of prison, or it could be literally suicidal. And you look at these pictures. They can refocus you and stuff like that. It happened with me a lot. I used to sit on my bed with my head behind me, like with my hands behind my head, just thinking, you know what, like I'm gonna end up in here for years, man. Because I was on remand for witness intimidation, and I'd turn my head and I'd look at the wall, and it sounds crazy, right? Much like music can take you to. It might be, you might have had a song with a first love or something, and that might be your jam or your song. Another song might remind you of a funeral song, or it might be a sad occasion, right? Looking at photos is like music in that regard. You can look at the pictures of your loved ones, and it's like you're transported to that moment in time. You remember the good times. You look at your family and think, I can't do this to my family. I want to live. I've got everything to live for. Right. And it can actually rechannel you and refocus you. Not in every occasion, obviously, because sadly, some prisoners do go through with suicides and stuff. God bless anybody that's lost somebody in that way. But yeah, pictures can lift your spirits. I always say to people, right, if your loved one gets sent to jail, right, things that will lift their spirit, right, is obviously contact, so letters and stuff like that. Prisoners, I used to sit on a toilet, mate. Curling one out, right? I'll be honest with you. Sorry to put it like that to my female subscribers. And I'd read the same letter. I'd take a load of letters into the bog, yeah, and I'd just sit there reading each letter because we had a separate toilet. So I'd just read every letter backwards and forwards, frontwards and backwards. I'd read other letters, and then when I got bored, I'd read the same ones again. Same with pictures. So if your loved one goes to prison, right, straight away, email a prisoner. But if I was to say, oh, receive an email or you can receive a letter, I'd always rather pick and choose a letter. Send pictures of yourself or your children, whether that be nudies and stuff like that. You got to cover your nipples and stuff, but it might be pictures of you, the children and stuff like that. Then first few days in prison, especially if it's your first time in prison, that's where most suicides take place, right? So as soon as your loved one's sent down, right, or even before that, if they're coming up for trial, I tell them actively, pack for prison, get loads of pictures, get them all printed off, good times, happy times. You don't want sad pictures that are going to remind you of crap time, because that'll spiral you worse in jail. You want to look at pictures that lift your spirit, right? Obviously, when they go to prison, obviously, if they've just landed at the jail and they might have been remanded and they've not had a chance to pack a bag and pictures, send them pictures, send them some money, because they can then buy credit and stuff like that. They want to speak to you. They can buy canteen items, that's a morale booster. Pictures to put on the wall, morale booster. Reception visit, morale booster. Canteen, when the canteen comes, when you've ordered your canteen, your toiletries and your food and stuff, stationery and whatnot, morale booster and stuff like that. But the importance of pictures whilst in prison are massive, and whether that be through sent in or like sent in by post, or like this story here with a prison booth. Fantastic initiative, support it wholeheartedly. Very interested to know from you guys, what do you think about this? Have you been in Lowdham Grange? Have you been in another prison where this is in practice? Do you support it? You've got to think, right? Just imagine, right? Say you're doing, I don't know, say 15 years, right? You've got a 15-year minimum tariff, right? And your son was 1 or 2 when you went to jail, right? There's going to be, you might see him on a visit every week, but there's no pictures of you and him. So if you're doing 15-year minimum right tariff, right, or whatever it might be, yeah, you can have a picture with him every week and stuff, and you can have photos on your wall as your lad or your daughter grows up. You know what I mean? It's a massive thing, powerful thing, man. It doesn't sound, does it? Because we're all outside doing fucking Instagram fucking things with a fucking silly dog ears and a fucking laughing tongue and a fucking with the tongue hanging out and all that stuff, right? But when you're in prison, you don't have them luxuries. I mean, obviously people do have mobile phones and all that shit, right? But for those that don't, that are doing it, they're not on mobile phones and stuff, or they can't afford mobile phones and they're going through the prison phone. This is a massive thing, man. And I support it. And on that note, guys, I'm going to shut my mouth. Let me know what you think about the video. It's not about what I think, it's about what you think. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.